It is that time of the year. The Premier League season is over. Summer's basically here, and it is time to pick our Premier League team of the season. There will be plenty of disagreements and debates. Let's get into it. Roll the intro.
Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. First things first, do us a quick favor. Please hit the subscribe button. Takes 2 seconds and it's absolutely free. Let's get straight into it. As I said in the first bit of the intro, we are going to be picking our Premier League team of the season. To keep it simple, we've each picked our own 11 in a 4-3-3 formation. And what we will be doing throughout the episode is debating these positions, and we will ultimately decide on a one lost in possession joint team of the season. So, as always, we have to start with the goalkeeper. Jamie, we'll come to you first. Who is your pick for the goalkeeper in your team and why?
So this was quite a tough one, actually. There's a few players who have done it. You can even sort of chuck in. He may have conceded more goals, but he's won the Golden Glove, and that's De Gea. But I think Alisson deserves a shout out as well. He's performed very well this season, and while Liverpool were struggling, he's kept them still able to challenge for the Champions League spots towards the end of the season. But I've gone with Nick Pope. I think he was just absolutely brilliant at the start of the season. It did dip off a little bit towards the end, but I think overall, consistently through the season, he was phenomenal. So he's got my pick.
Reese?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of how I went about picking my team, I wanted to go for players that took their own team to a new level. I think it's very easy to pick players, when we're expecting this of them. But yeah, I went for team players that will go for a whole new level. And I understand, yeah, De Gea kept the most clean sheets. Alisson had a very good season, players like that. But I think, yeah, Nick Pope had to be it. I think he's been a great signing for Newcastle, and he's one of the reasons they're up there.
Well, I mean, Pope was in my top two, if that is any consolation for him. But I went with Ramsdale. So I think, well, first of all, United fans are going to absolutely hate us, but De Gea was 3 clean sheets clear. However, for me, he's just made too many mistakes consistently throughout the season. And I know that sounds ridiculous when he's got the most clean sheets, but he's not been at his peak levels and he's not been good enough. The reason for me with Ramsdale was when Arsenal signed him, there was doubts. Everyone didn't think he was a top level keeper. And for me, in the big moments this season, he showed that actually he is a top keeper. He kept Arsenal in games. And of all the keepers this season that I can remember the most great saves and moments for is Ramsdale. But 2-1, I have to concede already.
I think Ramsdale's a good shout, to be fair. Like, he has had a very good season. He's sort of one I didn't mention, but yeah, he was up there. But sadly, Jordan, you're 2-1 outvoted here.
Disgraceful. Right, let's. So Pope makes the cut already. Let's move on to defence. So I'll kick things off here with some stats on the right back position. So again, a lot of people in contention for this, probably 2 or 3 in my head. The one I went with was Kieran Trippier. He started every game for Newcastle in one of their best seasons on record. He created the most chances from set plays, 76, and he almost played the most passes into the opposition box by a player in a single season since stats were recorded, 551 passes into the opposition box. So he's not just been defending, he has been creating chances going forward. Stats don't lie. Kieran Trippier for me.
Hard to disagree, to be honest. You said there was sort of like 2 or 3 players that you could name. I couldn't think of anyone past Trippier. I stopped looking. To be perfectly honest, it was Trippier, hands down.
Reese, any names for you to throw in the hat?
No, full house. Can't argue it. Played all 38 games. Yeah, 7 assists, and I think he's pivotal to Newcastle. I think when we look at where Man City got taken over, They signed Gareth Barry, and I don't think people realise how important he was to start everything off. And I think Kieran Trippier is the exact example of that as well.
Okay, well there you go. 2 out of 2 for Newcastle. What a start!
Yeah.
Let's move on to the centre backs. We'll do 2 at once this time. Reece, will come straight back to you. I think centre backs was there was definitely a few names here that I sort of had and crossed out. Who was your 2 that you ended up on?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of good centre backs this season. Some very consistent, some goal scorers, etc. But again, I went for general influence over the side. My first pick is William Saliba at Arsenal. He's my first Arsenal inclusion today. I think if you look at how well he's done, there was a lot of questions over him going out on loan, 2, 3 times. No one really knew what they were going to get from him, etc. And he's slid into the team and been so vital to them. Look what happened when he got injured towards the end of the season. The defense just wasn't as solid. So it has to be William Saliba for me.
Who I was going to say, yeah. Who's your second? If we'll do both at once for the centre backs.
Well, he seems to now be a midfielder, but I've gone for John Stones. This guy, think about how many people have criticised him over the years. When he first joined, the season after that, people were like, oh, he's only doing well because he's got this player alongside him, etc. He's flourished. He's so important to City. It's unbelievable. He continues to prove people wrong. He's probably become maybe the best English centre back we've got. So, I can't argue with that.
All right. Well, I'll jump in because I am going to argue with you on that. For my Man City half of the centre backs, I went with Ruben Dias, and again, I'm not saying Stones has been bad whatsoever. By the way, he's been great, flourishing in a sort of new role. I think he'll get a lot of attention because everyone's been talking about him playing in midfield. But let me reel off some stats because this is eye opening for Dias's impact. So, Man City won 85% of the games he featured in, 22 out of 26. And that's compared to when you take him out of the team, they only won 50% of those games, which is a huge, huge gulf in terms of win rate. And look, I appreciate there might be other factors, but Ruben Dias is the leader in that defense. He is the most consistent by far. I think he's got a higher peak personally than Stones. An 85% win rate with 50% without, I think is a solid argument in his case.
Yeah, no, I do agree, but I do think that it shouldn't be a shock. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I've not gone for players that we'd expect to be there. If that makes sense. He's been great ever since he's signed.
Fair. And well, I might as well finish mine because my other half was Arsenal, and I do agree on Saliba. So for me, again, a lot of good centre backs this season, but I think he had the biggest impact on the team. I don't have his stats to hand, but it was probably a similar scenario with Dias's stats, where you take him out of the team and suddenly you see the goals conceded go up. So yeah, Dias and Saliba for me.
That's quite interesting. You two fighting over City defenders. Normally, I have to put in my edge piece to sort of get City in the conversation. Really, I actually didn't expect either of you to have a City defender, so I was ready to come at you both with sort of just arguments. But you've surprised me both. I think I'll start off with the one that we've got a full house on, Saliba. He was in. It shows how good he's been that we had to talk about him when he wasn't playing. He's sort of the reason why I think he's actually been elevated into this conversation more. He was in it before, but more once he's at the team. It showed how important he was to Arsenal. And there still might have been a dip off from Arsenal, but I don't think it would have been as dramatic if he was playing all them games and fully fit. My second one, though, so I did pick a City defender. I actually went with John Stones as well, same as Reece, because he's played a bit more. There's not much difference in the playing, to be honest, but he's played a bit more, and he's not just done the defending. I know you want defenders to defend foremost, and Diaz is that perfect example. He's what you would see Jordan in a John Terry kind of thing. Defending is his art kind of thing. That's what he does. And he's sort of said the quotes before of, I love defending. If no one else is going to take pleasure out of it, I'm going to kind of thing. It's what he does. However, I think Stones just has that little extra bit to his game that I think that's what works on well as a pair. But he's sort of on the ball, moving into the midfield. And because that moving into the midfield massively helps the rest of the team. It's not just the defending part, which he's also got. And Reece, to your comment on probably England's best defender, he is England's best defender. And people don't realise he made Maguire look good for years. He's one of the reasons why he's cost £80 million is because he looked so good next to Stones in the Euros and the World Cup, because he makes people better players. And I think people only backed Maguire more because his fat head got on the goals from corners, which doesn't show you actually the defending part. I think he got overhyped due to that, and Stones helped him out massively. However, Jordan, once again, you're missing out on your picks. Me and Reece have a clean sweep so far. I think it could change.
That's what happens when you use stats. I stand by Diaz. I'm 2-1 outvoted, but the stats don't lie. Let's move on to left back positions. Reece, will come around to you. Who is your left back and why?
I've gone for this player because I think wasn't originally supposed to be there, but he's been made into one, and I think he's stepped up to new levels of importance that I think people didn't realise he was capable of. Especially when he was playing a bit part in quite a few seasons. But once once this team sold a left back and then let another one go, this player took the fold and went with it. And I've actually gone Nathan Ake, or Aki, however you want to pronounce it. I think he's been unbelievable as a player. It just shows how good Pep is, doesn't it? 26 appearances, 1 goal, but he does his job, doesn't he? You don't hear of him making mistakes, put it that way. So, and he's able to match people physically, which I think has been quite impressive.
Jamie, do you agree? Man City.
So really, this position was out of 3 players, I think. I think if you picked someone else, I'd be quite surprised. But it was Ake was one of them, Shaw was another, and Zinchenko. I think it's out of them 3, and I'd be surprised if you, Jordan, had someone else in that category. Zinchenko, I think, was something that did bring Arsenal forward a lot better. It was something that they didn't have in what Tierney had for Arsenal before. Zinchenko had that more control, ball knowledge and control, and him and Jesus being signings were brilliant for Arsenal this season. Is why he done so well. However, he did dip off and he made big errors, I think. The Liverpool one being a prime example. But it was something that I'd seen at City because he's not overall a left back. Shaw is such a tough one now. I think it's out of Ake and Shaw really would be my pick. Shaw's been great, to be honest, for most of the year, and he even filled in at centre half for quite a few matches and didn't look fully out of place. To be fair to him, I think he's had a great season. I'm going to have to go with my little bit of City bias here because I think it's a tough and close call. So I'm going to go with Nathan Ake. He's been brilliant this season, and when we weren't doing as well at the start of the season, he was still a great performer. And it's only the rest. I think it's like the rest of the team had caught up with him, not he dipped off either. So he's been completely consistent throughout the whole season. It's a shame he got injured towards the very last few games.
Well, here we are again. My pick doesn't matter for the team this season. I'll have to be a bit of a sheep and agree, I guess. I mean, I think Zinchenko, is up there. The other one I had was Dan Burn. I've really liked his impact on the Newcastle side. Sure wasn't in my top three, actually, but I feel like we've done Man United a bit dirtier, to be fair. But I'll agree. We'll be boring. Nathan Ake. Congrats.
So happy.
Yeah, I know.
At least it's not against a Chelsea player, otherwise you'd be fuming more.
Well, yeah. Chelsea probably won't make this team. Let's move on to the midfield. I'll start things off, and I'll be genuinely surprised. I assume we all went with sort of one CDM. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. For me, has to be one man. And again, I've got some stats to back it up. It has to be Rodri for Man City. Obviously, stats are pretty hard in a CDM role, but his impact has been ridiculous. Possession of the ball, winning 301 times. He was only second to Rice, so I guess shout out to Rice in that respect. Constantly regains possession for City, and this is the big attribute of him. He always wins the ball back to start. I mean, I say counter, probably saying City counter is harsh, but consistently winning the ball back, consistently breaking up attacks of the opposition team. And I think 6 assists for the season as well. Again, CDM, pretty good for that. I think he's just phenomenal. He's gone underrated for a lot of seasons, and this season I think he really stood out, and finally maybe is getting the respect he deserves. So yeah, Rodri.
Yeah, same. No one else has excelled in that position as far as I'm concerned. He's the only standout performer, isn't he? No, you can't question.
I don't think he's the only standout performer, to be fair. I think the other sort of, you've got to think Partey had a great start to the season throughout most of it, to be perfectly honest. He probably came third in this. He was getting compared to the other two, but you've got to look at probably first and second best CDMs in the world right now, in my opinion, and that's Casemiro and Rodri. Casemiro, I actually think could have been much closer to Rodri in this, because Casemiro's played 28 games this season. Rodri's played 36, but Casemiro's been sent off twice, so he's missed some games due to that. And really what came down to is probably that, and I've picked Rodri as well. Probably not a surprise from me, but it's a clean sweep there. He's been brilliant, and like Jordan just said, with the retainer of the possession, that's what he does so well, and that's what I think City hadn't had for the start of what Pep was trying to do. If you looked at that first season, we were getting counter-attacked left, right and centre, and this is what Rodri now does that changes it, and it's not impossible to counter-attack City, obviously, but he makes it so much harder for teams to do it.
I think Casemiro as well. I was going to say Casemiro, we have got to give a shout out, because his goals, I can't remember that. I think it was 5 goals, 6 goals.
4 in the league, yeah.
4 in the league,
yeah. Scored in the FA Cup as well. So
yeah, I think if he had a full season, it would be neck and neck.
Yeah.
But for CDM to score goals consistently is pretty impressive. So unlucky Casemiro. Let's move on throughout the midfield. Let's talk. Well, I'll come back to you actually, Jamie. Any more City? It feels like most of your team is City at the minute.
Yeah, there's another
players make an appearance.
There's another. It's KDB, and it might be a surprise to some people. I've not gone with Gundogan. However, he's been terrific as well, by the way. But KDB, look, you're looking at the guy who's won the assist award again. I think it was at least 4 assists away from anyone. It's sort of, he's just that guy that gets you over the line for so many of the games. and he pops in with the goals as well. So overall, his season with the assists, with the goals, played 32 games. Is KDB. He's my one of my other centre mids, as you can call them. Do you want me to do my next one?
Yeah, go on. Who's the other?
The other one is Martin Odegaard. He's been terrific for Arsenal, especially when I think the two wide players at towards near the end, they started a bit of a drop off, but he popped up with enough goals to keep Arsenal on the sort of winning streak and try to put them in the contention to win the league. He's been terrific, and I think it'll continue. But he was being disrespectful. People were being disrespectful at the start, saying he was better than KDB, because he definitely isn't. He might be in the future, but right now he's definitely not. But he's been terrific.
Yeah. Reese, over to you.
Yeah, let's not get stupid here. He's not better than KDB. That's just a ridiculous statement. I haven't put KDB in my team because I expected him to be good. As silly as that sounds, I just expect him to deliver. I have gone for Martin Odegaard because I think he is probably the most important player in that Arsenal team. He's only 24 years old, and yet he shows the leadership of a 35-year-old veteran who's won every trophy possible. 37 games, in the league alone, 15 goals, 8 assists, and the goals he scored as well. The manner of those goals, absolute worldies half the time. So his influence can't be ignored, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done, because I think he's so crucial to that team, and there's a reason why he's a captain. The other player I've gone for is, and again, I'll emphasize this, is because he has taken his game to a new level, and that is Paraguay's finest, Miguel Almiron. There was a lot of jokes about him last year. To be honest, Jack Grealish did poke fun of him, which is whatever his opinion is, it doesn't matter. Last 21-22 season, he played 30 games, 1 goal, 1 assist. The season before that, 4 goals, 1 assist. This season alone, he played 34, scored 11 goals. In the league, that's just good. That is very, very good. And he's registered 1 assist in the league, but he also managed, I think, about 6 assists in the League Cup. So the guy's upped his game considerably, and he's proven a lot of doubters wrong. So he had to be in there. I think he's been outstanding.
I think for Almiron for me tailed off quite a lot in the last bit of the season, and he was on that sensational run. And had he continued that, I think he'd definitely be in contention. But for me, it was not enough at the latter stages of the season. So it looks like me and Jamie are in agreement in our midfield. So I went with for Arsenal, Martin Odegaard. 15 goals, 7 assists, a leader, helped, not single-handedly, but helped take Arsenal to another level this season, and a phenomenal improvement year on year for him. Little stat on him as well. He became Arsenal's highest scoring midfielder in a Premier League season since Fabregas 13 years ago. So he's definitely in good company there. Serious player, serious performances. And my other one was actually KDB as well. So I do agree with your points, Jamie. Yes, we did expect this level from him with Haaland, but to keep doing it consistently and again to deliver at the business end of the season when it matters, you can't fault him. Top of the assist charts, top of the expected assist charts, and also 3rd in the league for created chances. So no, sorry, Reese, but both your picks get outvoted there. I know the feeling. So our midfield is Rodri, KDB, and Odegaard. Congrats, lads. Let's move on to the all-important front three. So we'll start on the right wing. I've got a feeling we're not all going to agree on this one.
I think this is a tough one.
Yeah. So
I think the 2 wingers are tough. These are the 2 that I think we'll disagree on.
Yeah, so I'll kick things off. Again, I've got stats to back it up, but I've gone for Mo Salah. Now, everyone's going to say, oh, he's not had a great season, blah, blah, blah. He has actually had a great season. So, one, you've got to consider that Liverpool weren't battling at the top of the league, right? So, this is, you could argue this season has been a poor or a weaker Liverpool side that haven't been putting in their usual numbers. And despite that, despite everyone going, oh, he's not been good enough, in the top 5 European leagues, the only people ahead of him on goal contributions, goals and assists was Haaland and Mbappe. I needn't say any more. He's still in elite company, even in a bad season, in a weak side. Who you boys gone for?
This was tough. Like, it was out of 2 players. It's out of Saka and Mo Salah. It really was. See, I've got Salah written down, but in my mind, I'm slightly changing my mind as I'm thinking about it, because Saka's definitely one of the reasons why they finished second, why they finished 5 points away from City for the title. I know that counts as nothing, but it's a struggle. I'm still sort of like, don't know who. I think it's that close, because Salah has got the goals, more assists, quite simply, if you put it off that. But Saka's been so important and completely on fire at the start of the season. He dipped off a bit towards the end, where Salah couldn't even get an assist versus Bournemouth for the 9-0 win, all fuming on FPL. But he's come along with 19 goals and 12 assists, which really, if you looked probably midway through the season, that's like the rest of the season. If you looked at the mid-season, he was going nowhere near that sort of numbers. So to get that, he's been phenomenal. I'm going to change my mind and go Saka, due to the fact of the contribution to the team overall and where it's got them. Yeah, Saka. I'm going Saka. I think he's been brilliant. But yeah, like I said, I've written Salah down, but I've also changed my mind.
There you go. Saka or Salah, Reece? Or have you got another one to throw in the mix?
I went Saka just for the reasons Jamie said. However, you have to argue, if you're playing a Champions League final or you're playing against Man City, you're playing against whoever, the biggest club, who do you want on your side, Salah or Saka? And you obviously want Salah. He is somebody who will turn up in the game, whereas Saka, I'm afraid, does not. But I do think Saka, over the season, his contribution to Arsenal as a team was better.
I'm getting deja vu here. I mean, this is ridiculous. Even Jamie's changing his mind last minute. There's got to be some people somewhere in the comments backing me up. I mean, come on. Haaland and Mbappe and then Salah, and he's not even in our team. Ridiculous. But there you go.
But it's not always about goals and assists, Jordan. You've got to remember that.
He's so good for the last 6-7 years in the Premier League.
But in a bad season, he's doing.
Yeah, but he hasn't had a bad season. It just shows how good he is. But we shouldn't be too surprised that he's still carrying. Look at Thierry Henry. When Arsenal were having a terrible season, he still carried that team.
Yeah, but it's more.
I disagree with your reasoning, Reece, of saying we expect it from him. I know you've picked your team a lot on that. I don't agree with that, but I do feel like the performances consistently this season, I think Saka's been higher, but Salah's probably had the more peaks, or had the peak towards the end of the year. That's kind of how I've seen it. I think Saka's been a pretty high, consistent level and slightly dipped off towards the end, where Salah's probably been a bit lower, then peaked towards the latter part of the season. Which obviously, if you're fighting for titles and things like that, that's where it matters. But
I'd trade Saka for Salah. As awful as that sounds for a lot of people, I would trade him. He is a better player.
Yeah, but I think it's relative.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right. I say let's move on, but actually let's keep this line of debate, because relative success I think is important. So I'll bring on the next debate. Harry Kane has obviously scored 30 odd goals. in one of the worst Spurs sides we've seen for a while. Is that more impressive than Haaland doing what he's done at City with a perfect team who wins the league with KDB behind him? Discuss.
No. End of discussion. Well done. Great talk, guys.
Why? It has to be
Why?
relativity.
Because the goals mean nothing in the end. They've not even got European places. His goals meant nothing. It doesn't matter in the end. Like, he can score 100 goals and it's contributed to nothing. He actually got more goals than the other top 4 leagues. He would have won the Golden Boot with them, but he didn't in the Premier League. Haaland's come in. You've got to remember, Haaland's 22. He's come in and he's just, after what people would have called a very disappointing day with the Community Shield, and he's gone in and broken record after record after record. To do that in your first season, to break the records that Kane hasn't broke in the season, shows why it's not as impressive. Haaland, what he's done is not normal. He's called a robot for a reason to a lot of people. Kane has been fantastic, but he's got to do it when it matters, and that's winning your team the league, winning the cup final, at least putting yourself in European places. I know it's not all down to him. It's not down to him that they've not got European places. It's down to the rest of the crap behind him. But you've got to remember it's a team game as well. And possibly, I don't actually fully believe what I'm going to say here, but I'm going to say it anyway. Him being so good there may not help out the team overall. Sort of where you've got, like, at Arsenal, a Jesus who's not scoring as many goals allows the players around him to do better. That's sort of where I'm going with this. But overall, Haaland, I think, has had a better season and a more impressive one, and will end up with more trophies, and it'll be remembered more than what Kane's season has been.
Yeah, and Jordan, before you offer your wrong opinion, when did City, Aguero, they had Aguero that was probably their last minimum 20 goal a season striker or something like that. Haaland changed the dynamic for them. In reality, Haaland doesn't need to do much. He just finds the net. I feel Kane has to contribute so much more to that Spurs team to get his goals. And that's his style of play. That's fair enough. But would you have been shocked if Kane got minimum 20 league goals anyway this season?
No, but he's done 30 in one of the worst Spurs sides we've ever seen.
Yeah, so would you have been shocked if he'd have got 20?
Nah.
Yeah, exactly. So we shouldn't be too shocked that I know he scored loads of goals, but that team, he was going to get those goals. I know everyone says Haaland was going to, but Haaland's changed the dynamic at Spurs. We knew Kane was going to score anyway. Spurs could have been bottom 3 and he'd have still got 20 goals minimum.
Yeah, but to your point,
Thierry Henry will get you minimum 20 goals, even if the rest of the team contributes naff all.
Yeah, but I think to your point about 20 goals, I think you could put a bang average striker up front for City and they'd get 20 goals because they create so many more chances.
I can't agree with that one, because you've got Antonio saying stupid things like, "Oh, I'd score 30 goals if I was up front for City." No, you bloody wouldn't. No, you just wouldn't. I think it's because Haaland's made it look easy this season, but we've had Aguero up top. It's sort of like he didn't do that constantly. One, I think, was due to injuries, but I think even if he stayed fit, he probably wouldn't have hit the 36 goals that Haaland scored. It's something that wouldn't happen. And if Kane came to City when he had the chance, he wouldn't score 36 goals. But he would try and help more with assisting the wingers and things like that.
Yeah, that's his overall contribution, isn't it? Kane contributes more to overall play. Haaland is just told, stand there and we'll give it to you.
And score in any way possible, and he does. And he scores, he scores the overhead kick versus Southampton. I know it's Southampton, they got relegated, but it's still a great goal. It's things like that. I think Kane's been brilliant, but it's still not as impressive as Haaland. I just don't think you can say that, especially first season in the Premier League and a much younger age. No. So I'm just going to kick off. Haaland is my striker. If it wasn't obvious,
Really? You went Haaland?
Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly so. Haaland is my striker. Kane does miss out.
Reece, I assume from your...
Same. As much as I love Harry Kane, look what Haaland has done for this league. Kane has done it consistently, but yeah, Haaland as a whole has offered something different.
Yeah. Well, actually, after all that debate, I did still go Haaland, by the way. But I thought it was a debate worth having because I do think it's a fair point, and I stand by what I said. But for me, Haaland's broken every record, even though Kane's been unreal. He's not broken the record, so yeah, Haaland still. But I think that is an interesting debate. Finally, left wing. Left wing. We'll start with you, Jamie. Who did you go for, and who was your top two, top three, if you like?
My top two was probably who it is out of really was Rashford and Martinelli. Rashford obviously had that form where people were comparing him to be the best player in the world at the time, although I think that was just complete overhype on him being English and at United. But he was brilliant at that point. I've gone for Martinelli. I think he's just been so consistent throughout the year. Started off well and just continued. Even though Trossard come in, everyone was like, oh, he might be replaced. He still was banging in goals and contributing massively to the team. So, yeah, I've gone with Martinelli.
Reece?
I've gone with Marcus Rashford. I think he's been outstanding this season. If you look at over the years where he did, more disappearing acts than a magician, he's, he just went too long without doing anything. This year, he's actually been consistently good, and well, more than good, better than good. I think he got 17 in the league, 30 in all comps. I think he's been great, and I think he's only going to get better under Ten Hag.
So, I guess I've got the deciding vote for the last position. Makes a change. This one, I actually think in terms of 50-50, this probably was one of my closest. I'd say probably over the course of the season, Martinelli was a tad more consistent over 38 games. But the run that Rashford went on is what I'm going to remember most. And he's honestly, that run of games where it felt like months. It genuinely felt like months. Every single game, even the Premier League, I think it was even Champions League, Europa League, whatever it was. He was scored every competition. He just scored every game. I can't remember how many games it was in a row. It felt like probably 15, 20 games. He just 100% without fail would score or assist. So based on that, I think for me, is more memorable of a season for Rashford. He was in the top 5 European coming up, I think there was a point, let's put it this way, that he was probably top 5 in the world on form. I wouldn't say that about Martinelli. So ultimately, I've gone for Marcus Rashford. Man United finally make the team at the death. So there you have it.
That ruins my clean sweep.
Well, good.
I picked 10 out of the 11 onto that.
This is Lost in Possession team of the season, not Jamie's team of the season, but close enough. So let's reel off the actual team, the group team of the season. In goal, Nick Pope. And correct me if I'm wrong here. Nick Pope. Yeah. Right back, Trippier. Centre backs, Saliba, John Stones. The left back, Nathan Ake. Rodri, KDB, Odegaard. Saka, Haaland, Rashford. Boom. There you have it. People, that is it for this episode. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.